All right, welcome to Bid SoCon. Getting the tweet off here to promo this. We are here live at Harris Cherokee Center in Nashville after a ETSU VMI monstrosity of a game and a good Mercer Citadel game. Not great, good, not great. And now we're watching Wofford get their little shoot around in. Don't know what the 10 o'clock shoot around does for the next day game in the middle of the day, but that's what we got going on. So if you hear background noise, all that stuff, we've tested the mics, but that's what's going on. First and foremost, I think we got to talk about ETSU VMI. Braden Illick took a three at the end of the game. It's about a 30-point game. The whole bench was trying to get him to shoot it, and he didn't. He hesitated, and then he did at the buzzer and cashed it, obviously. And Andrew Wilson and Brooks Savage had some words. In all honesty, Andrew Wilson, don't lose by 30, and I would feel more I don't know. I don't feel a whole lot of sympathy for being upset about that. I understand saying something, but he wanted to talk to Brooks Savage for a long time. Like, it was a long conversation to finally where Savage just kind of walked off and gave up on the conversation, and Wilson kept talking to the coaches. And then when they went through the handshake line, the players got really into it. I'd already kind of looked away. I turn around. There's guys on the ground. I pull out my phone. Really got into it. I know Tayshawn Jackson was one of the big ones in it. Not that much of a shocker. He's a competitor. He's a dog. He will be in those fights. But, yeah, really interesting. Got out of hand. I don't feel that bad for VMI, to be honest. ETSU, congrats on the win. Horrible game, Matt. What'd you think about that game as we got some of the guys walking by us as we speak?
Yeah, I kind of just looked over and poor Brennan Watkins in his boot went through the handshake line first, and all I saw was him end up on the floor. So I don't know why you're getting involved in the scuffle when you're already in a boot. But,
Absolutely.
Overall, the game was just a monstrosity, especially in the first half. Second half, ETSU kind of picked it up. They made 5 of their first 7 field goals in the second half, and I think 3 of them were threes. So they kind of took their, I think it was an 8-10 halftime lead, and just blew it up to 19 or 20, something like that. And then VMI just kind of laid down and never really made an effort to get back into it. VMI tried to apply some kind of full court press in which they don't have the athletes to execute, and it was kind of just, whether it was Peterson or Ty Rice or whoever was handling the ball, would just get the ball and make a move to the left and would just be down court, and then ETSU would have numbers.
Maybe I don't want to be too much of a hater on today's podcast because VMI's got it tough. Andrew Wilson's got it tough. We'll see. I would assume he keeps his job, but I also would totally understand one loss or one win in Division I is a tough look, but it's also an incredibly hard job. But I don't want to be too much hating on VMI today, but that's probably the worst defense in college basketball. It was bad. I mean, everyone on ETSU was just getting to the rim easily. And now that's not all their fault. Stephen Oluwani, my all-freshman team pick, he's great, but he's also pretty short. Like, it is in person kind of crazy. I mean, Jaden Seymour's a good bit bigger than him even, and Jaden Seymour's ETSU's 4. Jaden Parker was like playing against middle schoolers out there. The most post work I've seen Jaden Parker do all year. If he played like that all year, which you don't get to play against that kind of size, he would probably be a all SoCon player, not just an all defense player, as we have the VMI guys walk by us. Sorry, but it was a interesting game. I really think ETSU, that's a huge win for them. Not just like the win, but their starters barely played. I mean, you think about the 4 games in 4 days. Now, I don't totally think ETSU's got a chance to win this tournament, but in theory, you have to win 4 games in 4 days. And I picked them to beat UNCG tomorrow, partially out of fun, but also I think there's a real chance. And I don't feel any less strong about that today after, looking at the minutes. They don't got the minutes on here. Whatever. Those guys barely played minutes. What do we have?
Yeah, Boyd played 18, Peterson played 23, Asamoah played 20, Seymour played 21, and Parker played 18. So
yeah, I mean,
it's kind of a win-win for those guys because you get the VMI get-right game that we've talked about, but you don't have to play 35 minutes, whatever it is, in a tight game to get right like that. So maybe that will play to their advantage tomorrow against UNCG.
Absolutely.
The defense will be a little more physical when you're playing UNCG as compared to VMI,
and that bench is going to have a lot more confidence too. They really got to put it on the VMI starters / bench. Guys like Mekhi Johnson. What do you go?
4 of 6 for 12 points.
Yeah, I mean, some of those guys had big games on the bench. Tyler Rice had a big game. All positives there. I don't know there's a whole lot to take from that. Let's go ahead and talk about the second game tomorrow, since we're on the topic of ETSU. UNCG, ETSU. Matt, after watching that, have your feelings changed at all about the game tomorrow?
No, not really. I will say I was kind of harsh on ETSU in our preview show just about how poor they are offensively, but having a game like this where you shoot 51% from the field and 55% from three, there is a thought that the VMI defense is so poor that you're getting easy looks, but you're actually knocking down those looks for one, which is good. But with VMI, it was the ETSU was just getting to the rim so easily, and at every point of contact, you could just see ETSU had the superior athletes, and so when they bump and go to the basket, the VMI guy just slides out of the way, and the ETSU guy gets to the cup. But I don't see that happening with UNC Greensboro, especially with the guard play. The Langley twins don't just roll over like that. So I still would lean UNCG, just not as heavily as I said last week.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about ETSU, and not to say I don't feel good about UNCG. Just in general, they could win this league, win this tournament easily, and nobody would really be surprised. Even though I'm maybe more down on them this year, but I think ETSU impressed me in that Jaden Parker's been playing great basketball. Jaden Seymour, their size. When you're seen them in person, I haven't watched ETSU. They've got great size. They got a bunch of dudes that are, they can guard multiple positions, play physical, and that's what they've done all year. Offense has been the question, and I think today was a confidence booster for them. A guy like Ebi Asamoah, I think he could, I think he's built for a SoCon tournament March type thing. His style of play where he's, taking tough shots and hitting tough shots. He had a good game today. Obviously, didn't play a ton. I told Matt I compare him a little bit to Jamal Johnson at Chattanooga last year, with probably a little bit worse shot selection, but just where there's some threes, if he's in rhythm, doesn't matter who's in front of him, you feel like it's going in. And he's a guy that in March can have a big impact. I think he can in a big game, especially late game. He can be really important. Kamari Peterson built a little confidence today. Didn't have his best game, but I think just seeing a win like that for ETSU could move them on to the next round. I'm excited to watch that one, especially.
A big thing I noticed was, I've seen him in person before, but Ebi Asamoah is a big dude. So, if he's matched up with Donovan Atwell all day, I mean, Atwell's not small, but if they can get some switches where maybe Seymour or Asamoah, ends up with his back to the basket on Atwell, they could expose that pretty heavily. They're going to have to kick the shooters if, Brown Jones or Jalen Breath helps. But, based on the way they shot today, you probably live with that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to the second game. Mercer versus the Citadel. And I hate it for the Citadel, dude. I mean, Mercer took them down. What do you have? What was the final?
84-76, Mercer.
David Thomas with a big game, 27 points. Maybe not the most ethical hoops at the end of the game. He was going for some buckets. He didn't get any necessarily, but you could tell he had 25 with 2 minutes left. Me and Matt were joking about it, and
they so bad.
It wasn't a situation where you would hold the ball. They were up 10 or so points, and he goes straight to the rack trying to get fouled, which was funny. But in all honesty, he had a great game. He heard Matt snubbed him from Player of the Year is what I heard. But yeah, he played great. Jalen McCreary didn't even have his best game, and Mercer looked good. I mean, Mercer's got dudes. Like I've said before, they shouldn't have struggled like they did early in the year, but that's behind us now. I think the Sanford losing to Mercer take is probably oversaid at this point, but because Sanford's so great and they have been all year. But in saying that, Mercer's got a shot. A guy like Jalen McCreary can take over in those type of games, and it's going to be an exciting one to see. Secondly, for the Citadel, I hate it for them. Does it say their final record on there? 11-21, 3-15. They're the best 3-15 team the SoCon has ever had, and I'll live with that. They just have so many good players. AJ Smith, Elijah Morgan. I hate it for Elijah Morgan and Quentin Malora Brown. They both had really good years. Their season's going to be over, but they've got stuff to build on. You think with the military schools, which obviously they're different, but Citadel looks in a good spot for next year if they can figure out the big spot next year, get some more bench players. I really like Kenyon Davis as a freshman. I like Madison Durr and AJ Smith. They're returning. I think they've got a good core for next year, and ultimately they got to fill those spots just like they did this year, where they had basically the starters playing almost all of the minutes. They've got to find some depth, and it's tough too. But I like some of their young core there, and I'll be interested to see what Ed Conroy does with them next year. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to Greg Gary in this one, which is interesting because Jack basically called for his job a few weeks ago.
We have to see him in person now. We got to keep that down.
They started Jake Davis again, which they normally do, and they had to adjust because the Citadel's guards with Elijah Morgan, Madison Durr, and AJ Smith came out, pretty hot, and so as opposed to leaving Davis in where he's sort of in a mismatch with one of those guards, Gary started going with a lot of 3-guard lineups. So Jake Davis only ended up playing 15 minutes today, which kind of paved the way for David Thomas and Jalen Cobb and Jock Quinones to get a lot of run. I thought Jock Quinones was so solid defensively all day. He was rotating back and forth between all 3 of those guards. Super impressed with them to get this win. Like we said, not the greatest showing from Jalen McCreary, but Alex Holt stepped up. He was big. He was 5 of 6 from the field for 11 points. It'll be interesting to see if they stick with some of those 3-guard looks against that Sanford press tomorrow, and how maybe they play that to their benefit, or if they like to stick with Davis in there and try to play the game at their pace.
Yeah, Gary said after the game, basically, when asked about the game tomorrow, that they just got to keep it from not being a track meet, and I think that's going to be ultimately it. Trying to play more of their style, really being physical with them, not turning it over much. And I think, like you said, those 3-guard lineups could be really important. But at the same time, I still think Jake Davis needs to have an impact because he's just versatile. The size and shooting he provides. But if those guards are all playing that well, Jalen Cobb can really shoot it. Caleb Hunter can play, and David Thomas, like he played today, if he plays like that, they've got a really good shot tomorrow. You have any thoughts on that game? Have you have any different feelings about Sanford winning or losing that one?
No, I'm still taking Sanford, but the way that Mercer shot the ball today, particularly in the second half, was very interesting because they shot that well when they played Sanford before, but it was 90% of it was in the paint. Today they come out in the second half and go 8 of 15 from 3, or sorry, for the game 8 of 15 from 3. So if McCreary and Holt can get it inside and kick out to shooters, and they can shoot that well. Like I thought Jalen Cobb was great today, 4 of 4 from the field and 2 of 2 from 3. If their shooters can shoot anywhere close to as well as they did today, Mercer can keep it close. And then of course, if they do keep it close, McCreary is a guy that can step up in the end and close it out for you. But like I said before, if Sanford comes out and pounces on you, it's going to be tough to come back.
All right, let's move on. Wofford Chattanooga tomorrow. That's at 6 p.m. Eastern time, which we're right here in front of Wofford. So let's keep our hate quiet. Our normal hate. Just kidding. But my thoughts on that one have not changed. I feel like Chattanooga and Wofford similar teams in that they're both offensive based. But I think Chattanooga's defense is better and their offense is better. They just got more dudes, in my opinion, and it does scare me. So in saying all that, it does scare me that I've seen nobody pick Wofford. I've seen nobody give them any credit for having a good year recently. And yet nobody is giving them a chance. And not even me. I haven't even thought of them having a chance. But part of me thinks that these guys are going to come out motivated. Corey Tripp, late game, is as good as it gets. Kyler Filowich had a really good game last time against them. And they're pretty deep at the guard and wing spots there. Just play a lot of guards with Filowich. I think Filowich and Tripp big whoop. The two best guys have to have big games, but that's really as simple as it gets for me. For Chattanooga, I'm really interested to see how Trey Bonham looks. We'll see on Miles J what his status is, but I do know, or everything I've been told is that Bonham will be available. That's he was just rested at the end of the regular season there. I'm interested to see how he looks because he looked like a player of the year level player when he first came back, and he got hurt against Furman, and he's not really looked totally himself, not as dominant as he once was, and that's partially why I took Honor Huff first team over him. If you had asked me a month ago, I would have took Trey Bonham over Honor Huff with Huff on the second team. Not to take away from either of them. I thought Bonham was having the better year, but he missed some time. Then he missed some time with injury, and he wasn't the same player. Whereas Huff was really great. I think that's going to be interesting to see because if Chattanooga wants to make a run at this title, and I think they can, Bonham's got to be that guy. Him and Huff got to be, the most fun duo in the league, like I think they are. I'm also interested to see Sam Alexis. I think Kyler Filowich probably got the best of him last game. Would you say? I mean, absolutely. Alexis seems to always make an impact. Not to say that, but Filowich definitely got some buckets on him. The game before he didn't. I think Alexis has got to be big. He's got to be that all SoCon level player, which he got the nod for, even though we don't feel like he played his best finish to the season. He was just so good early in the year. He's got to get back to that early season self in this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. We never really talk about, the gambling odds of it this side, but, the top 5 teams to win the league are kind of close. And then there's Chattanooga at plus 700, and there's a huge drop off, and there's Wofford at plus 1,700. So, I mean, you've got to think this Wofford team, feels maybe underrated and that they deserve a little more credit. And then, like you just said, Chattanooga rested Bonham and Che in that final game. And, maybe Wofford sees that as Chattanooga was comfortable getting us at the 6th seed. They didn't want to make an effort to move up to 2 and end up with an ETSU. So, I mean, it really is going to come down to, who's got the guys. And unfortunately for Wofford, we've said multiple times, maybe they're just a year away. And Chattanooga feels like they have those guys now, especially with how Huff has played of late and how good of a connector Tyler Millen is for that team. And if Bonham can be, a guy that was making a run for Player of the Year case when he first came back, I don't know how good of a chance Wofford would have, especially when it gets down to late game.
Absolutely. All right. Last game of the day. We're keeping tonight's episode shorter. Obviously, tomorrow we're going to have probably a long episode with 4 games. We're going to do them all. Same situation. Hopefully the last game is competitive where it wasn't tonight. In that case, we'll probably, go to the press conferences, get set up and whatnot. It'll be about 20 minutes or so after the last game. But last game of the day tomorrow is going to be Furman, Western Carolina, which I pray to God will be competitive because that's the gem of all the games tomorrow. It's going to be awesome. I've seen them picked every way. I'm going Furman, but I think that's the game that determines the Southern Conference Championship for me. I think if Furman wins it, I think Furman's going to win the title. I think they can beat Samford. I think they match up great with them. If Western Carolina wins it, I think that means Samford's going to win the title. I think Samford matches up a lot better with Western. They beat them pretty bad last time. I don't think that's a true encapsulation of what those two teams are and like the difference between them, but I do think Samford has played Western really well. They really controlled the first game of the season, and then they killed them the second game. I think this is going to be a huge one. We'll see if the legend of JP McGee's lives on. I've hyped up everywhere. I was on the Plaster Show earlier today, hyping him up. We've done it on the show as well, and he deserves it. Not to don't get me wrong there, but we may be setting him up for failure a little bit. Marcus Foster, we'll see. He's been an aura of consistency all year. And then the big thing, like we talked about before, Alex Williams. We'll see how much he plays. All that stuff going on with him. We'll see if Richie decides, like, hey, I don't care. This guy, this guy can go next year or whatever. Or if he decides, like, let's win this SoCon championship. Let's play our best players regardless of what's gone on outside. We'll see. No opinion on that, what he should or shouldn't do, but we'll see there.
Yeah, you could have told me at the beginning of the season that Furman and Western Carolina was the SoCon championship game, and I would not have been surprised. Some media members I've talked to today feel like it's sort of a de facto championship game, which is wild to think in the quarterfinals. just because those two teams are so good and they're both so experienced, and all they would have to do, I mean, not all they would have to do, but getting past each other is such a difficult first task compared to anybody else in this league. So, it'll be interesting to see how Western Carolina covers a guy like JP Pegues. I've talked about, the size of those Furman guards and how, it's a lot of the reason I also picked Furman to win the league is because those two guards are such a tough cover. And then, of course, the first matchup they get is with Russell Jones and Trey Jackson. So that'll be really telling for how this tournament would go for them.
I didn't even say anything about him. I'm interested to see Trey Jackson because a little bit like Ebi Asamoah, Trey Jackson hits tough shots. And I sat here last year in the same spot watching Trey Jackson cook on the pick and roll with Tyshawn Claude. And it made me pick him, first team all SoCon, really. I'm really interested to see if he can, take a year that was a down year for him, in my opinion. I think he's capable of a lot. I'm interested to see if he can, really turn up here in the Southern Conference tournament and put a cherry on top too. I think his college career, I think this is probably it for him. I believe. You never know with the COVID year, but I'm pretty sure this is it for him. Same with Russell Jones Jr., who's had a great year. So not necessarily same, but see if he can continue the momentum he's had all year. He's been awesome. I can't believe he got snubbed from the all SoCon teams. And if they win, I hope Justin Gray says something about it in the press conference because that's ridiculous. I'm not going to say people aren't deserving, but Russell Jones Jr., they finished 4th in the conference now, and we gave them one player. They had the best player in the conference, but Russell Jones Jr. was, he was no slouch. He was very, very important. They don't win nearly as many games without him. He was so important, so money. Like I said, with Pegues a little bit, how we talk about his clutch factor, Russell Jones Jr. hit so many shots in the clutch. He felt like he didn't have to be engaged in the game. Like he didn't have to be getting buckets, getting a ton of touches to really make an impact because he's going to knock down shots. I hate that he got snubbed, but I hope he takes that and, and puts it into motivation for this tournament game. But it should be, hopefully it's a classic like last year. Hopefully the refs, I totally forgot about that. Hopefully the refs don't intervene and make the game controversial. Hopefully we can just have a regular ending. But I'm hoping for some better games tomorrow. It was I was over here falling asleep. I was up early this morning driving to Nashville to get here and get all situated, and I was falling asleep during this VMI ETSU. Wow, it's loud. All right, yeah.
One last thing to think about. Jack just talked about officials, having to do with the outcome of games. I would keep an eye on the league and how they handle this ETSU VMI brawl. If there's any suspensions or anything like that, obviously they would have to figure that out quickly because they play tomorrow. I don't think it's likely anyone gets suspended, but
suspend VMI from the conference. Just kidding. Maybe suspend them the rest of the year. I don't know. But yeah, no, that will be interesting, and I can already see on my phone that post is blowing up, probably because I put fight in it. And it was. I mean, I look up and there's guys on the ground, so I missed part of it even. So it was a little more than a scuffle. I wouldn't say it wasn't like a fist fight, but it was more than a scuffle. So it was definitely something. Yeah, 13K views already on it, so that's what people enjoy, and people are going to hate on for not winning games, and I will a little bit too because they, I never feel that bad for a team upset about somebody shooting at the end, especially when they're playing on the other end too. It's respect to hold the ball late games, but at the same time, when the other team, the losing team comes down and it's like Tyshawn Jackson's almost like trying to ISO for a bucket. And not that they shouldn't, but I just think you shouldn't take offense, especially when you get beat badly. That's my soapbox. That's just in general. And also, actually, one last thing. Handshake lines are the stupidest thing ever. I forgot. Yeah, I'm getting some points over here.
If you've ever wondered why they don't do them in the NBA,
it's dumb. Let the coaches can go handshake if they want to, or if they don't, whatever. If they want to be, get mad at each other. But why are we still doing handshake lines? These guys we're in COVID years. We got 23-year-olds out here. What do we got a handshake? I mean, you can show good sportsmanship in the game all game without having to go dap each other up when a lot of times you clearly don't like those people. It just makes no sense. So I think that's a good thing to end the episode on, unless you got anything else.
Good.
In handshake lines 2024. Stupidest thing ever. All right. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow after the conclusion of Furman, Western Carolina, probably 20 or so minutes. Check out our Twitters if you want coverage of the games. You're not getting a video of the fight anywhere else. That's it. So we're here to instigate. We're here to, tweet our thoughts on everything and then talk about them after. So we appreciate everyone in here. I got to figure out the chat. I see one of my guys on here chatting, and it would not let me see it for some reason. So we'll figure it out tomorrow. Appreciate everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.